Morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And this morning's topic is reinventing the wheel. It's a common saying, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But the thing is, I have actually discovered people who have literally reinvented the wheel, and what an anomaly that kind of thinking is, that actually allows us to step outside of our very deeply established and entrenched conventions to develop new, truly new approaches to things, new forms, new thoughts, new inventions. And this is something that we really get to look at as we find ways to navigate the unfolding, the emergent world that is unprecedented and presenting unprecedented challenges. We get to think new and fresh. So anyway, we're going to talk about that today. I'm really excited to share that with you. And before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your electrons, your molecules, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together and vigorously rub your palms together. Feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, and all the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. Good morning, Bernadette. Good morning to everybody who's joining us. It's wonderful to be starting the morning off with you this morning. And we're talking about reinventing the wheel. It's the end of the first week in January, and the weekday week in January. And I am just excited to share this with you. So reinventing the wheel, we use that phrase commonly to say, hey, it's already taken care of. You don't have to think about that anymore. It's if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? It's already working. Well, I have to tell you that when I was in California in November, I met a guy who has a company called Shark Wheel. You could look it up on at sharkwheel.com, and they have literally reinvented the wheel and created a better wheel. And it's based on a sine wave and a cube, and it's just uber cool. And it has a whole bunch of applications. Well, obviously wheels are everywhere, right? So it has a whole bunch of applications. And right now, the area that they're exploring that they feel has the most promise is in the agricultural industry. Because it solves a lot of problems for farmers. So I believe I've talked about this with you before, but we aired an interview last night on Sustainability Now and talked about this technology, not only the wheel, but also a wind and water turbine that is based on a similar principle. It's really biomimicry, following the patterns of nature. Anyway, it just was so inspiring, and to be learning about the potentials of something that we generally take for granted as done. Like, that's done. The wheel's done. We did that. We can go on to the next thing. And there's so many things in life where we stop questioning. And I understand why we do that. It's a whole lot more convenient. It's like, okay, this is done. Now I can put my attention elsewhere, and I don't have to be constantly reevaluating, reassessing, revisiting these these standards that are already set, or these problems that have already been solved. So Bernadette says, I'm going to make the wheel in a triangle shape. So when you do hit a pothole, bumping off it will make you used to things not being as smooth. Just kidding. My humor today is on par. Either you laugh about life or you cry. I hear you, Bernadette, and I'm all in the laughing camp. Although I have to say, this isn't what today's topic was, but yesterday I was just feeling so burdened by things that just weren't going in the direction that I wanted them to go in the time I wanted them to go. And, over and over and over again, I was having appointments that were canceling or that were getting confused. And, it was so intense. And I'm not one of these people that lives by astrology, but it was so intense that I had to check if Mercury was in retrograde, and it is. So I was like, this isn't just a day. This has been days and days. Apparently Mercury went into retrograde the very end of December, and it's just been like clockwork that all the plans and appointments and everything has just gone kaflooey in such a big way. I mean, it's incredible. Anyway, so if you're experiencing some of that, try to just allow yourself to surf the wave there. I'm working on that, but I had a moment of, are you kidding me? Like, when is enough enough? It just one thing after another It was crazy. So anyway, we still are in retrograde, I think, till the 18th or something. So we get to learn to dance. That's what I'm feeling, or balancing on the high wire. That's what it feels like. Certainly not comfortable, and running my agenda hasn't been a source of ease. So I'm letting go and letting go and letting go. So it's an opportunity, like seeing the mirror. I was like, oh my heavens. Anyway, reinventing the wheel. So check it out. Check out sharkwheel.com. You can actually invest in this company through the end of the month through Start Engine. If you're interested, you could just do a search for Shark Wheel Start Engine. But what we're talking about here is true innovation, questioning the unquestionable in a way, questioning established paradigms and beliefs and practices, and allowing ourselves to maybe be guided, but not necessarily constrained by our established conventions. So there's certain things that we don't question, and this reminds me actually of the Hunger Project. So years ago, people from, I don't know if it was the EST training at the time or if it was landmark education by that time, but declared that they were going to end hunger on the planet. And until that moment, until that time of the declaration, essentially the fact that people go hungry on the planet was just taken for granted as an insolvable problem, as an unsolvable condition. And the declaration that hunger would end on the planet, that there would be enough food to feed all people, and that all people would be fed, created a new field of possibility and potential. It generated a new notion of reality, that the reality was no longer that, of course, there's hunger on the planet, but the reality was we have enough to feed everyone. And how do we do that? And that it was more a problem of distribution than of bounty. And so with the beginning of this new year, you know, the reinvention of the wheel, just symbolically, the fact that these folks have reinvented the wheel. And actually, I mean, they've been working on it for years. So it's not brand new, but it's gaining traction, shall we say. It's on a roll, shall we say. That the starting the new year with this kind of innovation, starting the year with the recognition that we can absolutely reinvent deeply entrenched ideas, paradigms, models, structures, to me is one of the most hopeful things, to know that we can actually, it's hopeful to me to imagine that we can turn around the challenges that we have on the planet right now, human and otherwise. Bernadette says, still taking care of my friend's mom, and I question so many things we go through at the end of life. The wheel in her life is flat and broken spokes from moment to moment. Yeah, end of life can be so difficult for so many people. Jenny, so wonderful to have you here. I'm glad you were able to join us. But I'm not sure what you're saying there, but welcome. When we talk about the wheel, we can reinvent death also. Like, this is an important thing for us to be looking at in terms of what we're talking about today is reinvention. And culturally, our culture is so death avoidant. This really came into focus for me. I interviewed this wonderful woman named Carol Sanford, who is, she doesn't like the term, but she's a thought leader, in spite of the fact that she doesn't like that idea. She's an educator and a disruptor, and her whole jam is thinking differently, you know, finding new ways of approaching life and issues and potentials. And she has ALS. She makes no bones about it, and she expects that she has about a year to live. And we did this interview, and it was really super powerful. We talked about regeneration, because she's really a thought leader, provocateur in that arena. And we also talked about death, and the purpose of death. And her whole approach to her own death is quite remarkable, quite remarkable. She's set up a circle of people that are her people to enable them to be present throughout the whole process if they choose to. And she is opening a conversation about death that allows us to use it in a way that it enriches life. To your point, Rosalind, celebrate life. So as we experience death, it can be the most powerful, the most powerful advisor for life. And shifting our cultural paradigm around it is something that would create great transformation. So much of our lives are spent in denial of the fact that we're going to die. So Jenny says, death, it's scary to think about. And that's largely our cultural conditioning. You know, the process, death itself to me is not scary. The prospect of suffering and dying a slow and painful death, that's something that is scary to me. And Carol said that she is facing it head on, and she has an exit plan. And, you know, in many traditions, people just go off into the wilderness and they stop eating and drinking and they pass. They allow themselves to pass. And in this country, we spend inordinate amounts of time, energy, resources, machinery, medication, interventions, all to avoid death or to prolong life, regardless of the quality of life. You know, just to prolong the beating heart and the brain, and not even always the functioning brain, right? But just as long as the system is still registering signs of life, that we consider that's alive. And we go to such lengths that are insane to avoid death. And death is just a part of life. I mean, we all are going to die. And when we recognize that and we embrace that, it can advise us on how to choose to live our lives while we're alive. So Bernadette says, I would absolutely love to have her be within conversation. I find I need to periodically walk away because my version of how I would handle this time is so different. I don't understand why this conversation is so taboo to many. I agree with you, Bernadette. Well, you know, if we look at, I tend to believe that medicine is our contemporary religion. You know, that we put our hands in our lives in the hands of our doctors, and they prescribe all kinds of medications, and science and medicine. And so science is going to keep us alive. Science is going to help us defy death. And, you know, it's a good thing that people die, as far as I can tell, because it allows for cultural change and evolution. Because if, you know, the people who are empowered are people who are representative of old ideas in so many ways. And those old ideas are perpetuated as we perpetuate them. And when, you know, when we pass, then there's more room potentially for new ideas and new possibilities. So, it's kind of nature. Death is one of nature's um, evolutionary devices, to allow things to pass so that we can have this churning and change. And yeah, the thing that's so challenging to me about death is this experience of loss of someone that was dear, the loss of loved ones. So I'm not sure what you're saying here, Jenny. What you Everyone dies. It will happen. There's so much anti-aging and reverse aging to live, allows people to live 150 if you can pay for it. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's true. I know that there are projections that people are going to be able to live to 150. And I don't know that that's a wonderful thing. The anti-aging stuff, it's very interesting. I mean, I see the anti-aging stuff as being able to maintain quality of life until you die. That would be a wonderful thing, to not be um, degenerating. It would be nice to, not be degenerating into all kinds of aches and pains and decrepitude. It would be nice to be able to just stay stay healthy until the switch turns off. I mean, that would be ideal, and to allow that switch to turn off. Um, yeah, I'm not a big advocate for the live forever type idea, but people are innovating in that area too. And um, yeah, it just brings up so many thoughts of allowing things to pass, allowing the cycle of life and evolution. And yeah, so innovation. We think that we're so advanced, and the truth is that there's so much we don't know, and there's so much yet to learn. And with all the uh, as far as this longevity thing and all the supplements and all these different things that are available to us in terms of moderating our health and improving our health. At the same time, so many of our practices are degrading our health, right? The practices around food and soil and air and pollution, and so we're going like crazy to look young and feel better with all our supplements, and I take a ton of them. While at the same time we're creating an environment that's unlivable, on so many levels, and toxic and deadly. So it's really interesting. So I think, I'm not sure, Bernadette, if you're saying you would like your wheel to continue rolling for another 90 years or you wouldn't. I personally wouldn't. I'm ready to go when it's my time. I it's been a ride. I wouldn't want to do it again. Bernadette says, no way. That's how I feel. Like, you couldn't make me go back. There's no way. Rosalind says, I have two notes. Grief is the honoring of the end of what was. And suffering is how life tells you you are resisting or misperceiving what is real and true. That's beautiful, Rosalind. I think we just said the other day, that the Dalai Lama says all suffering is a result of misconceptualization. And it's interesting about saying grief is honoring the end of what was. I want to agree, and also allow us to recognize that we can still honor the end of what was without grief. And there are many people that believe that if they stop grieving, that they will no longer be honoring the person that they cared so deeply for. And I think there's a time for grieving, and we get to let that pass as well. That that we can still honor people without that pain, without that grief. And I agree that suffering is resistance. That's when we suffer. We can feel pain and not suffer. So I think they're two different things. So Jenny's talking about longevity health. And yeah, there are lots of people that are doing life hacks. And, there's innovation happening in that arena all the time, and reinventing the whole idea of what it is to be alive, and what health is, and how we can preserve our health and extend our lives. The question that I wonder about is, what do I do with my life to make it worthwhile for myself, for the world? What do I do with my life so that it's a contribution? I don't need to be alive just for, although there's something to be said for being alive just for being alive. We've been talking about purpose lately, and that's a biggie for me, is purpose. What are we doing here? And so may this be a year of innovation, invention, discovery, all for the good. That's a challenge, because whatever technologies we develop, we can use for good or ill. And our inclination has been to fund the militarization of so many of, or weaponization of so many of our technologies. So that's another paradigm that gets to shift. Anyway. Bernadette says, I've always welcomed the perspective of speaking of their life and what a contributing factor that person shared. Yeah, I that's a tender and beautiful sentiment. And I invite all of us to be looking at death face on, and to allow it to be something that enriches our appreciation for life and our engagement in life. And that would be an innovation. I mean, that would be a transformation in our culture if we could have a different attitude about death. We put people away in homes so that they're not visible. We don't have death right in front of our face, which is ironic because there's so much violence in movies and media. We see people being murdered or tortured all the time, and we see death in that way on the screen. But when it comes to actual death, we have this aversion to it. And Bernadette says that would be a smooth turning wheel. And Jenny says, I'm having surgery to remove the rod from my femur. Live each day as your last. So we wish you good luck with your with your surgery in 2 weeks. And meantime, you get to live life, because every day, any day could be our last. And let's reinvent ourselves ongoingly with that. And I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful weekend. It has been such a delight to be with you, as always, and I'm deeply grateful. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network, Enlightened World Living, EWN One with the Earth. And until next time, so much love to you.